as voters to look at the record. I introduced campaign finance legislation. I fought with my own party regarding gerrymandering when there was a community that was going to be split in half. And I went all the way to federal court to fight for a majority-minority district in Brentwood so that that community wouldn't be torn in half. I've been part of the move to amend, carrying the petition to overturn Citizens United. It is up to you to hear what we say, but please look at the record. If any of us has a record, please look at that record to verify what we're saying to you here. It's really important to know who we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I'm for transparency. I'm for full public financing of campaigns. That would get rid of the problem of money. But words speak louder than actions. In my own campaign right here, I'm not taking PAC money. I'm not taking money. Most of the money is coming from small donors. 80% of my contributions from this past quarter were in district. And you should look at the FEC filings. And I have to say it. Like Kate, for example, you're taking PAC money that's coming from wealthy real estate interests in New York. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. Look at the FEC filings. This is what. So I don't know what else to say. How we run is going to reflects how we're going to govern and what kind of legislatures we're going to be. There needs to be transparency. And so I will just end with that. I'm very proud of building a small grassroots campaign that's not taking money from real estate developers in Manhattan.
Yes.
Sure, I can respond to the PAC money. I don't know about any real estate developers, but however,
Look at the FEC filing.
I
There's a
have,
bunch list of them.
She has 30 seconds, please, Dan.
Be honest and
I
transparent.
have received PAC money from unions. I am and will never make apologies for being a blue-collar union worker. And unions support our blue-collar families who deserve a decent way of life and a decent wage, who fight for working families every day. That's what I did as a union worker, and I will never make apologies for having support from unions.
I'm not talking about you. Can I respond? Can I get 30 seconds? Can I get 5 seconds?
Yes. 30 seconds, David.
Okay, listen, I respect your work for unions. I know you're an advocate for working people, but you need to be honest. Look at your donors. They're wealthy real estate donors in Manhattan. You can look it up. I can look it up. You have a donor that did a development where the low-income people had to enter into a separate door. It's called the poor door. That's, if you don't know it, it's Gary Barnett. He's from Extel. Look it up. It's all over the papers. I don't know what else to say. Honestly, we need to be honest and transparent.
Thank you, David. Okay, you both had. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Okay, there's obviously several questions. I'm going to combine on gun control, and this is a very tough issue. We all feel like after Sandy Hook and nothing happened, we really felt like, and I did this too. I mean, I kind of gave up on the issue. And then the wonderful kids from Parkland, and they showed that there is something that can be done. So, in that, what can be done? Realistically, what can we do? Because there's a lot of agreement out there, but the main thing, as we all know, is the influence of the NRA. Now, we talked about money, we talked about corporate money, but what can you do as a sitting member of Congress to help to reduce the power of the NRA? And also, I'm just going to, that's the main question. And one of the, you can thread into that is Lee Zeldin's support for concealed carry, which obviously, because he takes huge amounts of NRA money. So I just want you to talk about that too. So please, I know we got 90 seconds on this, so thank you.
Okay, to reduce the power of the NRA in Congress. Well, by defeating Lee Zeldin, we take a really good tool out of their toolbox for him. We spoke before, mostly we listened to a group of high school students a weekend ago, and we have 2 more forums collectively this Friday to listen to community members. When you listen to the community, You hear the fear and the concern, and you also hear that if we took a vote on what the problem is, it would be badly split. Is it the money alone? Is it the assault rifles? Is it non-accountability for racism? Is it officer-involved shootings? Is it mental illness? Is it domestic abuse? That's why we need level-headed members of Congress to look at all of that data. We have to re-enable the researchers to make recommendations based on their findings. And then we have to move the needle on all of those things. We have to move the needle on officer-involved shootings. We have to restore an assault weapons ban to bring the number of massacres back down again. We have to do what New York did federally with laws to keep weapons out of the hand of abusers. We have to do all of these things, and we have to quantify exactly how much to do on every single one of them. There's no simple answer except to know as much about the answer as possible.
Thank you. Eric?
The tragedy of Parkland was awful, but for every awful thing that happens, there's often something good that comes of it. And the students at Parkland have done an amazing job of raising awareness in this country, again, across party lines, and bringing it to the media and to everyone's attention. The March for Our Lives a few weeks ago was huge. It had the same numbers of marchers as the Women's March right after Trump's inauguration. We need to keep that up. The student forums are great. The more noise we make about why we need sensible gun laws in America, the more likely we are to actually achieve them. This is a great issue for Democrats. Democrats across the country are running on gun safety. Certainly I am, and certainly everyone on this panel is. And we can use this issue against Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is a co-sponsor of concealed carry reciprocity. That is not a popular issue, not in this district, not in this state, not in this country. It's the NRA's issue, and Zeldin and Peter King are on opposite sides of this issue. That's a great indicator that people aren't for it. We can use this issue to hang it around Zeldin's neck. We can win by running for gun safety. Let's ban assault weapons.
Thank you, Barry.
We do all agree on this, every one of us who's sitting up here. And I think we were all at a wonderful forum that was run by the youngsters who came, who have been working on the Enough is Enough program. And there was one young woman who stood up and she said, we do need background checks and we do need programs in schools to alert officials if they see someone who might be in danger of hurting himself, herself, or another. But let's not create stigma against those people who have mental illness. And I think she was one of the bravest people that I had ever seen at any of these forums, because she said that she had suffered from mental illness her entire life and that she would never have hurt anyone but herself. So when we talk about sensible laws, we're not going to use the fear-mongering and stigmatizing tactics that Republicans use. What Perry just outlined and what Elaine just talked about are sensible laws. No one goes deer hunting with an AR-15. That is an instrument of human destruction. It's for killing human beings. So there's no reason for any civilian to have that on a city street or in their home. So we're talking about just being sensible. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Like the others, I'm incredibly impressed with the leadership young people have shown on this. And it's something that really gives me hope. There's a lot of young people on my team. I have a lot of high school students, and they've been leaders within their schools. And I think the place to start is with banning assault weapons. We had an assault weapon ban, and it was effective. And so we need to put that back in place. And so again, common sense measures. I think that we need to start there. But we need to talk also about reducing the level of violence in our society. And the record is clear. Less guns means less violence. So we have a very long way to go. So we need to talk more broadly about why are we such a violent society? We're such an outlier. And so it's a whole host of things. It is investment in mental health. It is investment in counseling. It starts very early. So it's going to take a very comprehensive approach. It's not just going to be specific pieces of legislation around guns. That must be done. We must start there. But we're going to have to look across the board because we really are. The level of violence in our society is really, really shocking, and it's affected all of us. It's affected people I know, very close friends. We need to stop it and change how we are.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so Lee Zeldin's response was, thoughts and prayers, create a committee. Well, guess what? It was a bunch of high school kids came up with some great ideas. It didn't take a committee to put it together. And by the way, where is that committee and what was the resolution of that committee? I guess they've done not much of anything. So it's very simple. A couple of the examples from those high school kids was making sure we fund the CDC so they can do gun violence research. Let's not tie the hands of the ATF, which is what something the Republicans have continued to do. Concealed carry reciprocity that Lee Zeldin co-sponsored and voted for. I'm married to a New York City detective. And law enforcement across this nation said, don't do this, yet he did it. So what does he care about? He cares about the NRA more than he cares about our law enforcement members and the residents here in the state of New York. So if you really want a military-style weapon, join the military or go into law enforcement.
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to ask a quick follow-up. I know by the rules of the format, we said 1 minute, but I'm trying to get through all of the questions here. And actually, you've done a wonderful job. You've actually been under the time limit. Usually when I'm asking 5 people running for office, they will fill the time. So in this, if you really can give a very short answer, that's fine, but I just want to get all the questions that are out here. So as a follow-up to that, what is your view of putting armed guards in schools? No, I'd like a minute, but if they can go shorter, they can.
It's time to give the priority to teachers, students, and parents when they say that they don't want armed guards in schools. There are so many other ideas that these communities have come up with. And so I hope that our legislators will listen to them.
Schools have to be a safe place. So if we put armed guards in schools that are in good neighborhoods, we're going to set the wrong example. There are schools right now that have armed guards, and they probably need armed guards. It's a community issue to some extent. What's a much worse issue that's been put on the table is not armed guards, but armed teachers. That's really where we need to draw the line. We can't even, just talking about it upsets me. And to hear that in the national dialogue coming from the President of the United States just should not be happening. And it comes from Lee Zeldin, and again, that's why it's so important that we win this election and change the national dialogue.
I taught secondary school here in the 1st Congressional District for more than 30 years. I could never imagine having teachers walking into schools armed. And I don't like the idea of armed guards in schools either. A school is a place of nurturing, it's a place where you need trust, where you have relationships. And we do need to address the problem, which is having too many guns in public hands. And we also need to have clear protocols in our schools. When I was a teacher, you went through a program regarding child protective services. If you saw a child that you thought was being abused, if you see a child that you think might be doing harm to himself, herself, or another, bring that to the attention of the guidance counselor. Bring that to the attention of the school district so that they know how to protect the child and those around him or her from any violence. But there needs to be a clear protocol on how to do that.
Thank you, Vivian.
It's a crazy idea. I mean, we need less guns. More guns means more violence. And then, it becomes an arms race, right? So if the police or the school guards are armed, teachers are armed, then people will have even more arms. You'll have shootouts. I mean, I've worked in places like Somalia where everyone, there's guns awash, the conflict zones. It's not a route you want to go. It's not the kind of society we want to have. We need less guns. Less guns will be less violence. Australia proved that. They used to have mass killings the way we did, and they took away, they had a buyback program for the guns. They haven't had mass killings. Less guns, less violence.
Thank you, David.
You talk to any of our law enforcement and they'll tell you the less guns on the street the better. And to arm guards or arm teachers is insanity. And it's not about if it doesn't work. It's more like when it doesn't work. What are we going to do next? Turn our schools into fortresses? I can tell you what that looks like. Growing up in Belfast, my high school, St. Genevieve's, my school was taken over by British soldiers. There was all kinds of scaffolding outside the school. There was sandbags and armored trucks. Is that what we're going to have to get to eventually stop that? We don't need armed fortresses in our schools. We need safe schools. So we need to make sure there's less guns on the street and make sure we have some better gun safety.
Thank you, Kate. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask, there's a couple questions here about education and what we can do to improve public schools and the outcomes of public schools from the federal level. Obviously, it's a state, it's a local issue. There was a lot of debate during the Obama administration about the Department of Education and what was going to happen to that. And what can we do? What can you do as a member of Congress to improve the performance of American students? Because we actually don't do very well on average against a lot of countries. So what can we do to improve that situation to keep this country competitive with the rest of the world?
Education is a priority in America, and unfortunately, like with most things, in order to have good education, we need to devote resources to it, which means money. We need to fund education better. We need to make it a national priority. We need to respect our teachers and our teachers' unions. We have to make sure our teachers are paid appropriately at a national level. It's a state level issue to a large extent, but the federal...
No, keep going, that's 30 seconds.
The federal government has got to have a role in this. If you look at the teacher strikes that have just taken place recently, teachers are fighting back and taking a stand, and we need to encourage them. What just happened in West Virginia is a great sign because it's a red state, and the teachers rose up and fought back, and they got a pay raise. We need to strengthen our teachers' unions and make sure the teachers have a say in our public education. And we need to encourage public education.
Well, we can certainly see in the Trump administration that there's no respect for public education by having Betsy DeVos as the secretary, who never attended a public school and never supported a public school and is trying to diminish our public school education, which is the great equalizer. That's the path to opportunity in this country. I came from the Dominican Republic. My father died when I was 6. My mother was a widow with 6 children, but I was fortunate enough to have been able to attend Hunter College, a fine institution, and it was my path to the middle class. And so we also have to look at the corporatization of education that's occurring. These test companies, I have many friends who have worked on Common Core tests, and their suggestions are ignored by the guys in the suits. And the corporate takeover of our education is a very, very serious, just as it is with the penal system. The money is being poured in and the product isn't coming out because they don't really care about public education.
Your question was about the federal role, right?
Yeah.
And so, Jim, you can't begin by saying, oh, well, it's really the education is a local, state role, but what can the federal government do? But, honestly, it's weird, right, that one of the reasons our education system is so flawed and unequal is because it's put on the backs of the local governments and all our tax dollars. So when you go around the world, like all the work I've done internationally, where I've been working with other government officials, go and look up places I've worked, people are always astonished when I say this is how we fund our educational system, right? That it's through local tax dollars, that the teachers are employees of the local government. So, he red-lighted me. But so yes, more federal investment, but we also do need to get away from this dialogue of sort of dumping on teachers and like blaming teachers and saying, oh, teachers work incredibly hard. My wife was a teacher before she was a doctor. This idea, what we need to do is we need to approach education in a way that we have a responsibility as a community, as people, and as a nation to see that children thrive, that all children can grow and have opportunity. So let's talk about accountability. I think it's looking at it the wrong way. I think we need to talk about our shared responsibility that all children can grow and thrive, and how do we get there? Federal, state, and local, working together, not mandates from the top down. Thank you.
Very diverse districts, and I represented a district with a very low-income community. So, when you're talking about other countries are doing a better